Now, we're a free society. We love choice. Choice leaves the paradox of choice. Just because Google says this is number one, wait, is this an ad? Is this promoted? How incredible would it be to have an ad free version of Google in our life? God, I would love that. But we have that with AI. And guess what? It's not giving you this paradox of choice in front of you. And now you're like, which one do I click? It's just giving you the answer. And guess what? We can actually have it cited sources. We can refine it. We can go back. We can really get more detailed with it. That's a really interesting topic that I don't think enough people realize is it's removing the paradox of choice and it's just giving us the answer.
Happy Friday and welcome back to the Connected Mindset Live. I'm your host, Greg Tomczyk. Another connected episode today. What we're going to do here is really take you into the future of yourself, optimize using some of the technologies and strategies we'll talk about today, and then bring you back in a very tactical way so that you can start implementing, daily, weekly, monthly to become, a more efficient person. We have Mr. Jim Carter with us today to highlight it. One of those experts that you really don't get access to talk about these types of topics. Jim, one of the things that we met recently, and we know a lot of similar people, and all of those people echoed a sentiment of somebody that cares about people, is passionate about technology, and kind of lives on that edge of where the future's headed. And I know some of the great things you've created for some of our similar contacts, which is really amazing stuff that I know people in my network and I know people listening in today still haven't come across because they're in the whirlwind of technology and just trying to stay abreast. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, and thanks so much for joining us here, Jim.
Yeah, same here, Greg. Appreciate you having me. It's wonderful to officially just kind of be sitting down having this conversation, and grateful for the opportunity just to talk through a very, very complicated topic, but try to make it a little bit simpler and get us really thinking about it a little bit more openly.
Heck yeah. No, I love it. One of the ways we like to start the show is to understand a little bit about the younger Jim to better understand the person sitting in front of us today. So when you think about what got you here, what kind of comes to mind, and what does somebody have to understand about Jim growing up to understand all the great things you're doing today, for people that can't do it for themselves. There's a lot of value there, and I think a lot of people have some things to learn from that journey.
Yeah, man. Put simply, younger Jim is was a terrified, insecure, only child that grew up in Southern California, but a builder at heart. Like I realized at a very early age, I wasn't the best skilled necessarily, like with my hands, like a traditional, like a mechanic, a plumber, that kind of thing. But I had this, I had this drive to build things. And when I found a love of computing very early on, so we're talking, let's see, I'm 43, go back to probably when I was like 14, 15. That's when I started building Frankenstein computers, in our den at my house, whatever spare parts I could find. And when I managed to build a functioning computer from spare parts, my parents took me seriously as like, wait, okay, what's going on here? And I fell in love with the ability to create in, let's just say, if we're talking about like early 90s in a different way. And for years, again, that insecurity was there. I didn't know what to do with it. I took on DJing a little bit early in my life, if you will, like probably early high school, and I was terrified of it. The first time I remember with some buddies, we did like a high school party, and they like pushed me to actually go, like onto the decks and actually do it. And I was like, no, 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 I can't do this, right? But like you continue to find those little things that drive you forward. And when I think that's really when I reflect back, there's all these incremental things that we do in our life that kind of lead to now a desired professional output that we want to focus the rest of our life on. I got this insane amount of joy out of positively reflecting things into people's lives. And I grew up in service. I'm an Eagle Scout in the Boy Scouts of America. So if anybody who's watching, that's why I got a big old eagle on my arm. It's a big reminder of how I spent the first 18 years of my life. And there's something about bringing everything back to service and doing it from a place of just knowing that you've got one to one, you've got one to many, and you've got one to many multiples. So like, how do we just do things that can leave joy with other people, can leave a positive impact with other people, but how can we also do things that actually affect the people that we're never going to meet? And there's just something about that desire that has always brought me back to service, trying to find ways to build in just a new and unique way. And man, just I've been in tech my entire professional career, as we've spoken about, but now with this new energy around artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these opportunities that are in front of us, it's just time that we take it seriously. And that's why I've just dedicated my life to technology. It served me well, and I just know there's a lot of ways that it can keep going great if we have really good conversations about it. We treat it with respect, and we use it in ways that it was intended to be used.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an incredible journey. That's that this is going to be one of those conversations where we're going to have the opportunity to do that. I'm looking forward to that. One of the things I heard you mention is that service aspect. I've met being in cybersecurity for the past 8 years. I've met a lot of technologists, so people developing things, looking out to the future. So there's some futurists out there who are kind of putting themselves out there as this is what technology is going to look like. Um, and I feel like when they get deep into tech, the people side gets more blurry because they're more into the solutioning, the kind of deep technical weeds of it. So some of the emotion around it gets taken out. And I've seen, I've had that experience myself sometimes as I'm deeper in the weeds with different technology. I feel like you've been able to take that creative energy of a technologist, but then be able to zoom out to see that people need certain things and there's services that connect one to many. And I think that's what technology was meant to do. One to many. Obviously, the one to one is great, but it connects people to be able to spread their knowledge and their strategies and who they are as an identity to more people and be in more places at once. Is that what your thought was when you were getting into technology and AI, or was it just kind of a creative outlet and then kind of just over time became, AI was the topic of interest?
Yeah, I'm not perfect in any way. I'm not this ridiculous like future thinker. I don't have pre-written prophecies. I didn't write any big books on it. I just I care, and for those who are watching, for example, you can see there's a couple pictures behind me. This is some children jumping in Ghana, and then above, which is kind of a little bit out of frame, but it's a school that my wife and I helped build in Ghana, because of the efforts that I put in asking for nothing in return with one of our favorite organizations called Pencils of Promise, based out of New York. I didn't go in asking them for an invoice. I got connected to the organization through a wonderful whirlwind of connections, right?
Mhm.
And I just found that this little bit of extra time that I had, I could donate. I could give without receiving. And they invited me to go into the field. They invited me to actually witness the impact that my efforts were doing. And if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever been on a charity trip like that, Greg, but like for anybody who has, that you come back with different body chemistry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It fundamentally changes you at your core.
Hmm.
And you also don't need that in life to really see that if you just, bring the human component back into it just a little bit more, it doesn't have to be all.
Hmm.
You get so much more out of it. So yeah, man, I can't lie. I wouldn't lie. I wish I could say that I had books about talking about this and this is me fulfilling it. It's not. I'm a normal guy. I'm a I'm a guy that lives in Los Angeles with a beautiful wife of 15 years and two gorgeous girls, 11 and 13, and I care.
Yeah.
But I think it also comes back to that. We have to find, do we care enough to want to have that conversation because I was also in a position where I strayed from that and I got money hungry and I just chased after the paycheck. And yeah, sure, I found it from time to time, but it always, I always realized I had to come back. So we can be humble, but we can also be a badass. I
Yeah.
think we just have to find like what that mix is for
Yeah.
everybody, and also just be honest with ourselves that we can be in seasons of it.
Hmm.
That's what I had to be okay with. Was there's seasons where I had to hustle. I had to do everything that it took to be a provider, to make it to the next stage of my life. But when you have a little bit of a break, man, it feels good to take a breath, come back to it, and be like, why am I doing this? Like, why
Hmm.
am I showing up?
Yeah.
And if you can honestly answer that, and I think bring a people component back in, man, it's just,
Hmm.
you're not just going to bring more joy to other people's life. You're going to feel more fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your cells light up, and you mentioned that on the trip. It changes your chemistry of your body in many ways when you help other people without expecting something in return. Um, there's so much value there, intrinsic and extrinsic, and I think that's incredible. I've heard of the organization doing great things, and it's awesome that you're a part of that. One of the questions that came up when we put this episode out is around a general entrepreneur, so not necessarily somebody running a big company, but somebody who's maybe has a couple people, they're using some VAs, they're trying to build their business and kind of establish themselves as a consulting agency, just as a general example. What would you say are the essentials to using tools like AI, these advanced tools? I've heard you talk a lot about just implementing, one thing a day, one thing a week into your life in small ways, and that positive stacks. I'm a huge believer in positive stacking. But what would you say, people should focus on, because there's just so much to do out there, and I know it's specific to each person. But kind of putting ourselves as business owners in that future state where we're now fully optimized, by AI. I'm sure you're getting close to there because you've been in it for a couple of years. But what would you say people should be looking for? How should they make sense of it? And then, what are a few things they can start doing in the near term to get started?
Yeah, it's a great question, man, and you're absolutely right. It's going to be different for everybody, but I'm starting to find some themes. So I think I can best serve the answer by talking about those themes. What I'm seeing, the biggest gains, and gain can be relative to whatever you consider it, is in more production of what you're already doing. That could be content, that could be just general output. It can be going faster, and faster again is relative. It's producing that content at a quicker rate. It's deciding faster. It's being able to come to a realization that you have this ability and you don't have to be as delayed as possible. Or it can honestly just be saving money, right? So let's just rewind. It's, we all love to save money. We should, let's keep what we have before we have to go earn more of it. I'm a big fan,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
There's the just going faster, and then there's the ability to produce more. Now, when you can get a trifecta in there and you can do all three of those,
Mhm.
tell me, try to prove to me that you're going to go back to where you were before. And I love consulting with businesses. It's what I do. I come in, I can be an AI specialist. We'll deep dive, we'll unpack the business, we'll look at it. But it all just starts with like, where are you busiest? Where are you spending the most money? Where are you feeling like you're capped, but you want to be uncapped? You just have to ask those questions to yourself. And for everybody that does ask that question to themselves, be honest with your answer. Be like, you know what? Let's say I'm making 200 grand a year in my business right now, and I've got a couple VAs, technically solopreneur, and I
Mhm.
really want to get to that point where I can like, I can add 20% more clients, but I just can't right now. If that's you and that's your use case or something similar to that, well, then we say, well, cool. I don't need to save money. I'm actually doing okay. I maybe I can go a little faster. That would allow me to then go get these other clients, and then that might still be tough. But what if I was able to produce the work for my clients a little bit, a little bit quicker with um, a lot more value. So we check one of those boxes off, and now We just refocus our efforts around trying to find content production tools, output tools, things like that. Maybe on the other side of it, you feel like you're doing fine, you've got a great business, but holy hell, your spend is just through the roof. There are AI tools that will help you reduce overhead by doing automations and things like that, right? And we could just keep going and we just kind of keep running through these examples. So that's typically how I like to approach it,
Mhm.
is find ways that you're either, where are you stressed? Are you stressed that you're spending too much? Are you stressed that you can't grow? Or are you stressed that you're just at capacity?
Yeah.
That's typically a great sort of self-reflection way of just starting the conversation. And then
Mhm.
from there, we get creative. What's the desired output I want to do better with? We can typically patch in an AI tool to help you just start to niche into that. And then it's a compound gains type of a play. You keep doing that, you keep coming back to it, you keep challenging status quo in your head. No, maybe we don't have to do it this way. Maybe AI could actually jump in and help with this one little thing. And then we mix in the simple fact that now it doesn't require hiring a data science team and and a bunch of software engineers and putting together a mainframe to handle this data. Man, you just ChatGPT is free.
Yeah.
So why are we resistant if we are resistant? And then when we
Mhm.
can really ask ourselves that question, be honest, and then do something about it, obviously you can have a gym membership, but if you don't
Yeah.
go, I'm talking to myself here. I haven't been to the gym in a while and I'm pissed at myself because I'm not going. But you have to put in that work. But the
Yeah, you do.
beautiful thing is that work can be while you're watching a YouTube video. It can be while you're on the couch hanging with the family, just experimenting. It can be while your significant other is driving and you're just like, I just want to try this. Like
Mhm.
find ways to just experiment, plug into it. And I have yet to find somebody who has leaned into it with my advice of what to do or where to try that regrets it,
Yeah.
because at least you know what's possible. And at the end of the day, if now is not the right time, well, it can be in the future. But if we just push it off, we're never going to see it and we're never going to get there.
Mhm. Yeah, we see the same thing in the security space because they're already digitally transforming so fast that they're exhausted. And then when it gets to a point where you automate or document SOPs and then automate those, it's like they're so exhausted that they because they're out of their comfort zone.
Right.
Where do you see adoption at? You kind of mentioned, I know there's resistance in any industry, any innovation that you're going and pursuing. But where do you see the adoption, at its heaviest? Is it kind of in that lower solopreneur, or are these bigger companies leading the way? Because you've been at kind of both ends of it. And how are you seeing
Yeah.
adoption increase? I know ChatGPT took adoption and just blew it up, but since then, where do you see folks and where do you see that adoption, sitting, and where is it headed?
It's really hard to paint a clear picture and bucket people because this is still such an evolving tech. If we think of the law of innovation curve, where it kind of starts here, has the early gains, we have the very early adopters, and then we have the early majority, it peaks, we have the late majority, the laggards. We're just starting to crest in the very early. And it's hilariously interesting to say that because AI has been around since what, the 60s. That was, we hear like Alan Turing and like a lot of these real OGs that asked these questions like, can a computer make a decision
Yeah.
that isn't because a programmer built an algorithm to help it do it? Like, can it actually understand? Can it make sense of things? So, I was born in the 80s. Like, I'm not an expert. I consider myself a specialist. I love the field. I get into it, but the real experts are the ones that are truly building and releasing and doing these things. So I like to be part of all of it. And that's why my claws are in the adoption of it. And I love pushing it. I love building my own projects, trying new ideas. But I'm an adopter because I'm also a believer. I see how it has benefited my life impactfully, not just in the last chat GPT era, in the last decade plus that I've been in mixed reality and XR, and I did hire a team of software engineers and that worked on machine learning, and we put together models and we did things like that. It's expensive,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Like it's not. fun. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but now it's more, approachable than ever. So, like with that context, I believe that you have it's not even a bell curve or reverse curve. It's just like a jagged, rocky cliff if we're thinking about everything from the independent, person who's interested all the way to like my mom, who is, I've talked enough about it now that she's like, oh, honey, this is cool. I start experimenting, all the way to the solopreneur, to the early founder, all the way to, Fortune 50 businesses. And it's just based off the precedent of where are you and how long will you survive without it in your life. I
Yeah.
really feel that it comes down to that.
Hmm.
There's a big ethical conversation about this, and is it taking jobs? Are we?
Yeah.
What all? And we can talk about any of that. But at the end of the day, yes, AI is here. It is coming for all of us in a specific way, not in an iRobot Terminator type of way,
Yeah.
but in a these abilities for AI to do things that we might be professionally charging for is available. So the question is, are we going to be avoidant from it, or are we going to adopt it? And I believe it's scattered. I really do.
Hmm.
My Twitter feed is a mix of tech, AI, golf, memes. I don't know what yours looks like, but
Yeah.
all that said, I see a lot of different businesses talking about it, from solopreneurs to indie founders to people who are thought leaders, all the way up to, like Toby, the CEO of Shopify, who's talking
Mhm.
about how at their level, this is what they're doing with AI. So it's a mixed bag,
Yeah.
but it's early enough that I think that's okay. And I also love that it's early enough and that it's okay, because it gives all of us some grace to be able to figure out where and when we want to do it. But we're no longer in a if we're going to implement AI, it's when and how. Like,
Yeah.
we have to have that conversation. And that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I just love advocating for the importance of it. And I love being proven wrong. If somebody believes that they should not implement it in their business, I welcome a challenge.
Yeah.
Prove to me why you shouldn't take this technology seriously. Seriously, I love that conversation. I will clear my calendar. I will
Mhm.
get on the phone with you, and I want you to show me how you are 100% resistant to it. I have yet to find a taker.
Yeah. Yep.
So please show me a way that we shouldn't take this conversation so seriously. I would love it. But
Mhm.
because I've yet to find a taker, and I've seen so many gains from all the people I've helped, consulted, and even my own projects, I'm a believer. And
Yeah.
it's that simple. It's where we focus our efforts.
Mhm. Yeah, that's incredible. I think it gets us closer to that term, the gig economy, where people are operating relatively autonomous from, obviously there's always going to be the larger organizations, but that the skill sets are fractionally distributed throughout the economy. And I think AI makes that more accessible for people to build their brand and build, get those best practice lessons early on in their entrepreneurial journey, which I'm extremely excited about, just to see how people leverage it. But when you see a personal brand today, do you say these are the few things that you need to be using AI for? I know you mentioned content. Content's huge nowadays, video and written content. But anything else you're seeing? We've had a couple of our mutual contacts and friends that are kind of cloning themselves in AI and doing some of that cool stuff, which I hadn't heard about before I came across that individual. So it's
Yeah.
obviously not widely distributed. Is that one of those things that you would suggest to any entrepreneur that's coaching, consulting, building a personal brand out there in the world?
Yeah, well, and I know we're talking about Kareen, and we can say that because she officially launched this week. So this was her launch week, so I'm happy to promote it with her. But yes, I helped her clone herself. For those of us that haven't heard about this concept, you're like, wait, what are you talking about? Is there like a humanoid in her house? I'm like, well, we
Not
might
yet.
get there. We probably will get there, but
Yeah.
no. What this is we took everything she's ever taught, all of her master classes, her coaching, her books, her podcasts, her everything that she's done. And we fed it into an AI model that now understands her, understands what she teaches. It speaks like her, it sounds like her, it is fiery like her.
Yeah,
And
we
it
both know
really
that.
is a yes, absolutely. That's why I adore her. And it absolutely augments her is the coolest thing about it. And what this does is it allows her to spread her impact rather than her only being able to work one on one with people. Now we've flipped it. It's a many to one to her clone. It's not even one to many, right?
Mhm.
It's this attraction layer that allows her to really think about how she can impact and grow in different ways. So that's one example. But to answer your question, it would be unfair for me to bucket and
Mhm.
say all entrepreneurs need to use this in AI. That's
Yeah.
probably not totally accurate.
Mhm.
But as a thought experiment, it would be prudent, fair, and actually advantageous for me to just blanketly state it's important that all entrepreneurs at least try something like ChatGPT. They try what's called a large language model. And a lot of times it's like, well, but what do I do with it? Like, that's where I can't answer that. That's what is up to you. But, when was the last time you were just doing something and you got stuck? Like, for me, really quickly this morning, the last time I used ChatGPT, I had to figure out at 8 a.m. what was 15 hours ago. And I was just like,
Mm.
okay, oh, geez, I don't know, like just doing math, going back over past 12. When did I go to bed? I don't remember. I keep it open in a tab. So I just clicked it and I said, it's 7 a.m. What was 15 hours ago? Or whatever number I said.
Mm.
And it said, it's 7 a.m. You want this? This is the math. I did it. And it's like, here's your answer. I'm like, okay, great. Moving on. It was a pause and a course correct. Before, maybe you go to Google and you type it in, and I don't know, maybe you get some junk websites. But aside from like, what other option do you have to get that answer? And then what happens if there's one more level of granularity? You feel stuck. That is like the most simplistic, quick
Yeah.
example of how you can just use AI in your daily life. It doesn't even have, I didn't make any money out of that. I had to just know what that hour was with confidence. So now think about, well, damn, if I could get that answer that quick, what if I could get an answer that actually helped me go faster, produce more, or save cash? Like those back to those three exact buckets. And now our world kind of opens up to us, right? I'll give you another quick example. I think one thing that every entrepreneur has been through or absolutely will be through without fail is having to send a hard email. Like,
Mhm.
it happens to all of us, right? A relationship starts to go south. We realize that someone wants to overcharge us for something, whatever. I had this use case that I just went through yesterday, which there was this case where there was just a disconnect in expectations from a client and, what I was overseeing with the dev team. And I was able to feed all the transcripts from all, because I use an AI note taker, from all the meetings. And I was able to go back through and just punch through and basically check to hold myself accountable. Now that it knows everything that was said, did I ever say this? Did they ever say this? And guess what? It helped me with confidence from a place of peace, be able to save having to go back and watch 4 to 5 hours of Zoom recordings. Like, nobody wants to do that. But something that would have taken me half a day in my integrity to make sure that I'm saying factual things, I was able to shorten that down to 45 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
it does, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I really believe that. It doesn't matter what it is that you're using. What matters is that you're using it, that you're trying, you're experimenting, you're going back and you're saying, man, could AI actually help me do this thing? When you're open and willing enough to lean into it, I think that's where the magic comes in, because it reclaims peace. That one specific use case, it kept me level headed. It didn't let me get emotional about what it was. And guess what? When I wrote my email draft, I actually put it right back in and I said, now that you know everything about this situation, help me make this email clear. And it helped me reformat it. And I was like, oh, this sounds way better. Tuned it up, hit send. I've never
Yeah.
felt better about having to send a difficult email. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when we just think a little bit more creative and we realize that we kind of have a magic wand, it's like, well, what are we going to do with it? Are you just going to sit on it,
Mhm.
or are you actually going to use it? That's where I think that opportunity comes in where every entrepreneur can find utility in AI. But we have to figure out what it is for each of us, because somebody who leads a Fortune 200 business is going to be using way different things in their daily life than an advocate or a solopreneur, but they still have some of the same basic needs, and AI is there to support us if we wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's yeah. It's just there's so much benefit to it that you made it clear on. You just got to get started, and that action's so important because a lot of people get caught in the research, and I think the way the internet is structured without something like a language learning model or some type of AI model that's distributing an answer is it makes people second guess themselves because there's different answers. So like, oh crap, I see two different answers. Am I making the right decision? And I talk a lot about building that internal trust because when I was in athletics, I would second guess myself and through different business decisions. And I realized when I had more data points, and that's what AI has provided me up to this point. I know it's going to continue to provide more. Is being able to kind of get a clear few pathways forward as opposed to trying to take what 10 people are throwing at me and make a decision that I feel good about. So, you mentioned how good you felt when you sent that email. I've felt that feeling, and I think not enough people have given it the chance to be able to get it to that level of kind of feeling that certainty that I think we're all looking for as we navigate life and business.
You're absolutely right, man. And just to expand on that, because I think this is a really important point, it's not our fault that in a digital age we feel uncertain. Because at least my generation, right, again, I'm 43, I grew up using Google professionally. I think it's fair to say that most people who are watching this, they use Google, right? Even my kids who are 11 and 13, they use Google to find information. Totally fair. But we're trained to ask a question to a search engine, and that search engine does exactly what it's supposed to do. It searches its index and it gives us all of the found results in its best understanding of what the top result should be, all the way down to the bottom result. It gives us choices. Now, we're a free society. We love choice. At least in America, God knows we love choice. I don't have to explain that to anybody in America watching. But choice leaves the paradox of choice, right? Just because Google says this is number one, well, now I'm like, well, wait, is this an ad? Is this promoted? Is it there because it's actually just YouTube and Google owns YouTube, right? They've turned into Google, which we know. There's something that I think everybody really has to understand about AI and the time that we live in AI right now is there's no ads in these responses. There's no this is gonna
Mhm.
please don't read into this, but there's no outside influence of
Yeah.
like this is sponsored and we're gonna push this to the top. Right now is an arms race. All of these big competitors in this large language model world, Chat GPT put on by OpenAI, Claude put on by Anthropic, Perplexity's engine, Google's Gemini, even Google, like Copilot is actually starting to play with doing sponsored results in their LLMs, but it's just an experiment. How incredible would it be to have an ad free version of Google in our life? Ask ourselves that question. God, I would love that, right? But we have that with AI. And guess what? It's not giving you this paradox of choice in front of you. And now you're like, which one do I click? It's just giving you the answer. And guess what? We can actually have it cite its sources. We can refine it. We can go back. We can really get more detailed with it. So that's a really interesting topic that I don't think enough people realize that this is what AI is giving us is it's removing the paradox of choice and it's just giving us the answer. How cool is that, right? And even with my daughters, like I mentioned, 13 and 11, they're both in middle school. I taught them a lot about AI this last summer. I said, you're not going to summer school, but you're going to have summer school sessions with Professor Dad. And
That's
I
awesome.
kid you not, now they go to Chat GPT just as much as they go to Google. I just installed Perplexity on their phones because Perplexity is considered an answer engine. It's ChatGPT is launching their version of it called Search GPT, where it's basically like they're taking all of this and they're giving you all the search results. But I use Perplexity every day of my life, and I even hooked it up to the shortcut button on my
Mhm.
phone. So if I hold that in, it's going to open up. I have to put my code in for
Yeah.
everybody's watching, but I hold that in, it opens up, and I just voice dictate what I'm looking for, and it searches the web just like Google, finds all that information, gives me one comprehensive report. Done.
Wow.
So try to tell me that AI can't save you time. Try to tell me that AI won't get you further faster. it
Yeah.
it does. We have to be willing to do it. And if we're also willing to break old habits, I'm not saying never search Google again. I use Google all the time. There's a time and a place for tech. It just so happens the time and the place for what's coming is here. And that's why I advocate for this, is because until we know about it, until we have this conversation, until anybody just shows you what's possible, I don't expect anybody to have any idea. I love, by the time we're done recording this, man, GPT 5 could be out. Google could release the next version of Gemini. I have no
Mhm.
idea. And that's kind of exciting again, because we haven't had this level of like rapid evolution of tech in a while, at least in the space that I occupy. And that's what really gets me fired up, is just seeing what's possible and what's new every single week.
Mhm. Yeah, there's just so many possibilities. I think that's extremely exciting. And some I'm looking forward to seeing evolve. I think we're at a state now where it's still misunderstood. I think one of the things, and you could help clear this up, is the specific language learning models that are like 2023 and past versus the one that are current day. I think a lot of people get those mixed up, and it sounds like Perplexity may be something that searches more of a Google engine for that most current information. But then there are some language models that have gotten those templates from past years' search history, is how I understand it. But I think a lot of people
Yeah.
misconceive that.
Yeah, I can explain that a little bit more. So, without going crazy tech,
Mhm.
let's actually just simplify the whole thing. Um, Artificial intelligence can also, and there's so many ways we can explain it, but we can also just say it's a really, really powerful, really, really advanced algorithm. It takes inputs, takes what it knows, gives you the answer, right? The same reason that you love or hate the recommendations from your Netflix account, that's AI. The
Yeah.
same reason that your phone recommends certain apps based off of where you are, where you're going, if you're in motion, that's AI, right? But it's also an algorithm based off of these inputs and based off of what we know, put it up here and give you that output. Google has their own algorithm, but even though they have AI elements, it's not AI. It is a algorithm that processes data and it gives you results. Gemini is their version of Google search results in AI form. That's a way of thinking about those two differences if we just want to compare with some things that we all already know.
Mhm.
So ChatGPT, some of these words I said, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Mixtral, Llama, all of these are either closed sourced proprietary or they're open source available for everybody. The concept is called a large language model. And what it is it takes a large amount of data, it mixes in natural language processing, and the model is the evolution of how well it processes the algorithm. Again, so many ways to explain it. I just want to paint it in as
Yeah.
clear of a picture as I can for our conversation. Like any technology that evolves, grows, gets better, a model evolves, grows, and gets better. ChatGPT was a research project that OpenAI, a private company, gave us as a research preview. And nobody knew what to do with it at the time. They released GPT 3.5, and everybody was like, "Okay, what is this?" Nobody really took it seriously in the very early days, and then all of a sudden we did, and we went, "Wow, this is crazy." But it had its flaws, and AI will always have its flaws. However, just like all technology, it evolves over time. Where you know The grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side. It's green where you water it. So
Yeah.
tech companies are watering that damn grass
Yeah.
fast. They're giving us that motivation to continue to learn, continue to get better. But the same reason that Netflix only recommends the things that you like when you tell it what's working is the model. That's how the model evolves. Artificial intelligence thrives off of a data loop. The more feedback you give it, the better it gets. So the beautiful thing about this is the more that we adopt, the more that we use AI, the better it's going to get, which means that it only benefits all of us. And that's why different models, aka different types of large language models, are going to be better at different things. ChatGPT is kind of like your Swiss Army knife. Claude, really, really fine tuned for helping with coding and also really helping with written word. I love the way that Claude, specifically by Anthropic, writes. I can draft really, really great emails, really great scripts, and I just love the way that it sounds. I don't necessarily love it with ChatGPT if it's
Right.
apples to apples, right? Perplexity is kind of a combo. It mashes up a lot of different models, and that's okay. We won't get into that. But Perplexity has the benefit of having real time search capabilities, and the way it puts everything together is stunning. It's a simple presentation of data. Gemini, I feel, really excels at having Google's knowledge as well as having absolute real time access to the web to do certain things. You can ask Gemini to audit your web page and give you, like act as an SEO specialist and like come up with ideas, and it'll do that. Like there's just different utilities for like these different models. So this is how exciting the industry proves to be when we start paying attention to it, which is wow, I have all of these assistants available to me to do all of these very tactical things. What am I going to do with it? Right.
Mhm.
I use nearly all of them all the time. And it sounds a bit much, but if you just look at me as like, well, this is my healthy obsession. I love watching the industry, how it evolves. I objectively have saved money. I objectively have moved faster. And I objectively, all data driven, I have all the data to prove this because this is what I teach, is I'm able to produce better content and get it out there faster. I just have to find the right tool or the right model to do the job. And this is how great the industry is evolving. Once you have a little bit of an idea of where to go, then everything unlocks for you. I just like
Mhm.
kind of patching that and helping people like point the right way and then say, you're free. Have
Yeah.
fun, try, experiment, break it. Love it, hate it, whatever, but try. Get
Yeah.
in there. And these large language models are all basically free. So there's nothing standing in our way. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It's interesting that we're in kind of that like fourth revolution of technology and how we've gone through those different renditions and the way trust is built at each one. Facebook and MySpace come about and it's free to log on, but then they realize that all the benefit is in the ads and them selling
Yeah.
their information. So when they go to something like ChatGPT, they're like, if I put my name in here and help me type an email, then they know who I'm sending this email to. And how do you help folks make sense of that aspect of you are now interfacing with something that's either open or closed source, and if it's open source it may be accessible by other people. If it's not, it's up to the company. And kind of just helping people realize where all this information is going, because they're burned from that third revolution of, is everything I put in here getting sold to the next individual, and when do the advertisers come into the equation when it comes to
Yeah.
something like ChatGPT?
Yeah. I mean, everybody listening, watching, we're grown adults. I'm not going to read the terms of service for you. But also, I guarantee we've all signed up for way more riskier things,
Yeah.
right? Got like if you got a TikTok account, I'm sure Greg, you've got
Yeah.
multiple opinions on just well, where does that data actually go? You got to know. You have to be an informed individual, and your password can't be the word burrito. I don't know what else to tell you, right? But when it comes to AI, what I will say is, at least for this time and space, the majority of all of these, they are funded by other people, which means yes, they're trying to make money by selling subscriptions because they're trying to get market cap and it's a gold rush and they're trying to get as many users as they can. But their MO right now is to get cycles of people using it. It's not to inject as many ads as they can. Otherwise, we would see ads
Yeah.
in the responses right now. So I'm a happy paying customer for
Same.
most of those models because I use them. And I also know how to read terms of service and look for the right things. And I recommend everybody read
Yeah.
their own terms of service to know where your data is going. With ChatGPT, for example, out of the box, as of my last understanding of their terms of service, and as of today, I'm not legal representation, this is not legal advice, but I know that unless I explicitly opt out, I'm okay with what I type in going to helping to train their global models, but I also know that my data is federated and protected. And at any time, I can redact that by clicking a button and it wipes everything clean after 30 days.
Hmm.
That's enough for me.
Yeah.
Is it enough for everybody? No. There are absolutely different use cases. Others don't want that information. Guess what? That's not the right place for you to put your data. The beautiful thing is we live in a world of choice, which means that if ChatGPT doesn't do it for you, you have another option. You can hire a developer, you can roll your own version of one of the open source ones on your own data system, and guess what? You have your own data protection. So there's so many ways that we can approach it. This is what I love helping people navigate is understanding where is their appetite for how fast you want to go, how risky you might want to use it, or at the end of the day, just what is your what is your core need? What do you need? And it is different for everybody. For me, I'm okay with OpenAI having some of my data in their data lake because guess what? I also have a Gmail address. Like since I think when I set up my first Gmail, I was probably 20. And it very clearly states in Gmail's terms, we read your email.
Yeah.
Like if you have a Google account, Google knows every word that's in your email. And guess what? They target their ads based off of what comes in your email. If you ever wondered why, like, your friend asked you if you ever knew about this one little tech thing, and then all of a sudden you get targeted for it everywhere on the web, it's because Google reads your email. They're not trying to hide it. They're like, yo, we make a lot of money off this. This is how we sponsor. So, Greg, I'm sure you can talk about this way better than even I can at this point, which is we have to know what we're getting into, but all that information is there for us. But the beautiful thing is it's not necessarily monopoly. There are options for us. And if that is really important, I would say just shoot me an email and let me know. I can help you kind of navigate it because I love this stuff. But we just have to be informed consumers.
Yeah.
And we have to balance that appetite for how quick we want to move with where do we want our data and who do I want to know about it.
Hmm. Yeah. That consciousness around what you're agreeing to instead of just clicking opt in and I want to use this system now. I think that convenience aspect we all want.
Of
Um,
course.
from a use case standpoint, somebody implementing it into their personal life. So I operate off something called my Life OS, which is basically just the data points I measure to make things improve over time. Do you see people building their own AIs to help manage their personal lives, or are we still not there where it's kind of mainstream for Greg to go develop, Greg's AI, function AI bot to help me, live a better life? Obviously, Perplexity, some of these apps are making that reachable, but it's not kind of in the pocket or the chip in the neck. For example, it's not that close. But do you feel like it's getting there where people are becoming more open to developing their own, AI clones? And
I do believe it's getting there. It's still going to be a while.
yeah,
Um, Even me, I've cloned myself. I have a clone of everything that I've taught, every AI tool I've ever talked about, every newsletter I've ever written, all the ways that I teach tech. My AI clone, which I offer to, I have a private Slack community where people who really take this seriously. I love helping people there. I do things, and I just offer that as a gift to those people. And here's a great use case of um, like using this kind of stuff is even my clients, they will ask the quote unquote dumb questions to AI Jim before they actually reach out to me. you know, there is untold, unknown value that actually reclaims energy that I didn't
yeah,
even know I had to give because I was willing to do something. That's like one of many cases if we just want to think about that in a way of me really trying to honor that question. But, you know, until I've got a humanoid that walks around my home and does things like make sure my dog has enough food in the bowl and I don't know, like prunes the flowers, that I got for my wife, that's on the kitchen and, picks up the junk that's like on the floor. Like
Mhm.
I don't see us really like surrendering to AI
Yeah.
anytime soon. I personally feel
Mhm.
like when we all have Rosie from the Jetsons in our home, by the way, my little Roomba robot, I don't know if anybody names
Yeah.
their robots like I do, but ours is named Rosie because I'm just like, that's as close as I've got. I'm not dropping coin for a humanoid yet.
That's
But
excellent.
I feel like that's going to be the moment where we're all like, oh, yeah, like, yes,
Mhm.
AI or humanoid is my homemaker. They do these things. They rearrange the books on the shelf because they're out of order. Like all these little things that take up this mental space. I'm personally just feeling, and from what I see from my clients, is that the only real efforts being put into it right now that we're taking seriously are those that have ROI attached to it.
Yeah.
And you just have to decide what that is. And most of it is easily attributed to a business. I have processes with AI that run all parts of my business. And I find opportunities to use it, just like that hard email example that I gave you. But AI doesn't necessarily run my day. And that's me. That's the guy who
Mhm.
knows all these tools and everything. There's still a level of like, I want to be connected. I want to be part of it. So AI hasn't taken my job, but it is absolutely taking my tasks.
Yeah.
And we, I think, have to find that flow. And there are AI tools that are trying to do that. Um, I think one's called augment.com. I've heard about another one's called you.com. I know a few of these, and I have a few of these. And if you go to my website, jimcarter.me, and there's just an AI tools directory there. I've got 600 plus different AI tools that I've put in there, really easily searchable. I love just trying to find opportunities to share, but I don't need everything hand delivered to me. I actually like being part of it. And I think that's where we have to kind of find our own flow there. I look forward to a day where I can have like, what's the president have every morning? It's like the executive
Yeah. The
daily
brief.
report. It's in
Yeah.
like a blue binder or something
Mhm.
like that. Like that sounds like fun. I'd love for my day to be delivered to me. And you know what? I know enough about AI and I have enough data in my systems and I know how to build automations. I could probably build it,
Mhm.
but I don't need it
Yeah.
yet. If I needed it, I think I'd be playing on a different level. And that means that I'd be thinking about things differently. And then that means that I wouldn't need it anymore. I'd need it differently. So that's just my brain, kind of working through that question. I think we all find key moments where we want AI to support us. And it's a little bit more of a tactical, almost like a AI contractor. It did this thing for me. Fantastic. But when it fully runs, fully automates, that's going to be a wild day.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, a lot of saved money, a lot of saved time. I already feel the benefits from that standpoint, and from the mental health side. I feel like AI is burnout prevention. At
Hmm.
its finest. It's taking what would normally take us 10 hours and boiling that down to an hour. I mean, that's or even
Yeah.
less. And it's just amazing what it can do for the brain to be able to be more clear and allow people to accomplish missions, not necessarily quicker, but smoother and with more joy along that path instead of the resistance that a lot of us get, which I think is incredible. And
Yeah.
there's just
Entrepreneurship can be incredibly lonely.
mm,
You don't even have to be an entrepreneur. You can be a
yeah,
leader of a business and you can have 500 employees, but still feel like you got nobody to talk to. You
yeah,
know, um, I've used large language models just to brain dump, get stuff out
mhm,
of my head.
yeah,
I'd be lying if I didn't say I tried to experiment with using ChatGPT like a therapist to
yeah,
just like reflect back to me either what I need to hear, call me out,
mhm,
or help me reframe it. But
yeah,
I also like I can do that while I'm walking the dog. It's
mhm,
incredible to think about how far this tech has come in such a short time horizon, and now what's possible in front of us that's only going to get better. And we just have to keep trying and wanting and then experimenting. And I think that's really like, when in history have we been in a position where we could continually break what we consider status quo every time it comes up? Doesn't mean that it will happen every time, but man, can you imagine what life would be like if all of a sudden you realize you had something to help you with almost everything that's blocking you? That's why I'm excited, because it won't do it every time. But man, when it does it, you're just like, well, there's no going back. How could I ever do this? I will never rewatch one of my Zoom recordings ever again because I have a note taker.
Yeah.
I can go find what I'm looking for immediately.
Mm-hmm.
To just the gift of realizing I never have to go back and rewatch something or whatever else. Just think of all those compound weights that can be lifted. That's where it starts to get really exciting for me.
Yeah, it's the fusion of art, science, and magic. I think it's
I
it's
love
one of
that.
those things
I love
where
that. That's a
you
great
mentioned it. You
phrase.
mentioned it earlier about the magic wand. Like we all have it, but what are we doing with it? And I
What are
think,
we doing with it?
yeah, that
So,
action piece is so key. And you learn as you do the hard actions to actually put yourself out there enough to test the tool out in your life. And I think that's where people are resistant is going and trying it and investing that extra time, because it takes that upfront investment of time and then you start reducing the time you're spending on that task. But sometimes we're so busy that we don't put that initial step in, which I think is the hardest one um, to go from. And you mentioned through that story kind of some of the life lessons you've learned, and you mentioned it kind of throughout the show from being a part of this revolution that's taking place. Do any of those lessons stick out that you've just seen from great leaders or people who are embracing this, that have made them kind of help lead the charge in an industry and a vertical that's just so exciting for so many people? Any life lessons that have stuck out for you, Jim, just throughout this journey of being in technology, seeing it evolve?
yeah, there are a few that I'm kind of rolling around in my head, but the one that is just undoubtedly the most clear, and I think every one of us can resonate with, because whether you're a leader or you're a homemaker or you're a father, mother, or you're an entrepreneur, um, you know that you're meant for something more, even if all that is more for you. But what AI can do is it can just help you explore the opportunity faster, more efficiently, and reduce that. Go right back to that, the paradox of choice. So if you're if you're a mother and you just want to be a better mother, you go to ChatGPT and say, "These are all the things that I'm doing. This is how I'm feeling. This is where I want to be. Give me some ideas." And oh my God, they're great. You know, if you're a leader of a business and you're like, this is where we are, this is my top line money, this is, my expenses, where can I cost cut, how can I serve my team better, it's going to give you ideas. And I'm just using ChatGPT as like a elephant in the room blanket example. And if you're a dreamer and an entrepreneur and you're like, man, I have this on my heart that I want to release this to the world, well, shit, you've got these opportunities with AI to possibly do things that have never been seen before. One of the reasons I collect these AI tools is because I love seeing proof that people are able to take those hard things that we all get faced on and actually do something about it. Right? It's like my mom still, will take to her grave that she invented the microwave,
Yeah.
but she didn't actually do it. Right? And I love my mom. I love mom, but she didn't act on it. Somebody did, but I can only imagine the
Yeah.
work that went into coming up with that. I saw an article yesterday that somebody used ChatGPT to, over the course of I think 3 weeks, to actually produce plasma. Did their own mini experiment of creating nuclear fusion or fission. I always get it screwed up. I don't remember which one it is. And I was just like, that sounds terrifying, but oh my God, can you imagine
Mhm.
having having a scientist in your pocket to be able to say, nope, you do it this way, not this way. This is the exact number. Don't do it that way. They achieved what, like, could you imagine having a little mini reactor in your closet? But this guy did it. So whether it's as simple as, man, I really wish I could create a website that rather than this, it does this, or it's like having a research assistant in your pocket or helping you prototype or anything else, all that's available. We have the wand. We just have to decide what we want to do with it. And it can still be hard. It can still be absolutely difficult. I love releasing in public, trying different things and getting stuck because I share it with my community. Like for example, man, I built a 100% autonomous weather podcast network over 18 cities around the world. It just passed 30,000 downloads on the entire
Oh,
network.
wow,
It's
that's incredible.
really cool. 100% AI. It pulls public data, it puts it into the system, it creates a script, it checks the script, it does the conversions. If it's in America, it's in Fahrenheit. If it's anywhere else in the world, it's Celsius because we're the oddballs that always have all that. It does all this stuff. It builds a beautiful script. That's the text. It goes to voice. It takes the voice. It uploads it to the podcast network. It does 100% automated, runs 24 hours a day. Guess how much it cost me to run the entire network? One episode a day, 7 days a week on 18 podcast channels. Less than $1 a day. And
Wow.
I've built an asset. I'm not yet monetizing, but I've got ideas. But
Yeah.
dude, at $30 a month, I don't know. I blow $30 a month on way worse things.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
to have AI be an integral part of checking a box of like, cool, I was able to build that. It's an asset that builds while I sleep. That's the dream, right? How do we have assets that build while we sleep? So use that as proof that you can start with a random idea and you can launch and you can get it over the you can do things that you didn't think were possible. And I started getting reviews on this podcast network.
Mhm.
My favorite one was this woman was like, so the weather in Chicago has been absolutely horrible, but this podcast gives me a positive spin on every day. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Again,
That's
going
why
right
you
back
do
to
it.
the like impacting people that we'll never meet. So whether it's building an AI podcast network or it's being a better mom or dad, like,
Mhm.
man, we just got to try something.
Yeah.
And that's why my heart is so set on it. It's not because I'm super humble. It's not because of all of this. It's just because it's possible. So we just have to ask ourselves, where are we willing to
Yeah.
try something and see where it
Mhm.
goes?
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, it's the topic of paradox of choice. I haven't even heard that in the technology space for one, but in the kind of self discovery, self development that people are doing and leveraging technology, that paradox of choice is fascinating. It sounds like a book potentially in the making or some
Um,
type of
I'm
way to
actually
look
drawing
at
a blank. It's either a book or it's one of those core principles. And
it. Yeah.
I apologize right now. I just can't
Okay.
remember which one it is, but
Mhm.
I've heard it multiple times. And once I heard it and understood it, I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
And I realized a lot of times that's just what holds us up. You know,
Hmm.
should I buy organic? Should I buy gluten free? Should I buy GMO? I don't know. So I don't buy it.
Right.
Should I invest in this thing? I have this opportunity, this opportunity. I'm just not going to do it. Should I hire my first employee? Should I build this thing? We keep getting caught up with this. It's the paradox of having choice in front of us. What do
Yeah.
we do? A lot of times we don't do anything. AI doesn't fix it. It helps. You'll still have choice in life, but to be able to dry run ideas and mock it out and to run scenarios, you can do all that by just chatting. Man, isn't that cool? Right? That's one
Mhm.
of many ways that we
Yeah.
can just continue to reclaim time in our life, produce more output, save more money,
Yeah.
and also make more money. Like
Yeah.
with all of that, you can make more. That's probably the fourth. That's the bonus round. Like when you
Yeah.
hit all three, you're probably making more.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's how I love to really contextualize it. Is which one of those three do you fall in? Sometimes two, sometimes even all three, and
Mhm.
that's when you get those multipliers.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm extremely glad we had this conversation to learn the depths of perspective that you have on it and how it impacts, people's ability to operate, because whether we're in our personal lives or in our business lives, we're operating some way, and we can optimize that through these types of tools. And you've made that so clear on how to actually do it from a tactical standpoint, because I feel like a lot of these innovations are very strategic, which they have to be sometimes, but that tactical aspect really helps people to implement at Jim. One of the ways we like to wrap up the show, and interested in your perspective on this because you've come across so many different areas that have made you passionate about connecting, with people, with ideas, with technologies like this. What does connection, mean to you today?
Relationships is what I bring it back to. Life is empty without great relationships, and technology allows us to connect those relationships so much better. Um, I still believe in the power of a handwritten note. And believe it or not, I'm that guy that still sends handwritten notes in key times when people come onto my heart and I think about things, or if I'm an event and I know like the room that they're staying, like I'll slide it under the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that.
Yeah.
But how great is it that I can also pick up the phone and I can send you an audio note, that I can record a video and I can send it over, or that we can be in two different states or countries and have the ability to use this with technology.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I love. And just to bring it full circle to this conversation, AI is allowing us to do that in a better way than ever before. So it's all
Yeah.
about relationships for me. And I may not be the best at it, but man, when I focus on it, my life is objectively better. And I just keep remembering that life is about doing great things with people that you love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that perspective. I'm glad we know each other, and I appreciate what you're putting out in the world. It's very important to distill this information down and translate it. And with every person I spoke with about, Jim and their relationship with Jim, they mentioned that multiple times. So it's a
I appreciate
it's
that,
a,
man.
it's an
It means a
echo,
lot.
and I know that means a lot to you as a person, which is what it all comes down to. Jim, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on to the Connected Mindset Live, and definitely looking forward to continuing the conversation with you.
Absolutely, Greg. Grateful for the time. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you, bro.